Hi, and welcome to the LaRouche Organization's daily update for Wednesday, December 28th, 2022. I'm Jason Ross. I'm glad you're with us today, filling in for Harley Schlanger today. I'd like to wish you a good morning, although whether it is a good morning and a good day is largely up to you. And while I hope this is a good morning for you, it might not be the greatest morning for those hundreds of millions of people around the world suffering from food insecurity, greatly exacerbated by the disruptions to global fertilizer and energy supplies caused by the prolonged conflict in Ukraine and the sanctions against Russia. It's definitely not a good morning for the mothers, the families of young soldiers killed in combat in Ukraine, or for those maimed, injured in the fighting. Hundreds of thousands have been injured, millions displaced. How many more Ukrainians and Russians and Africans and Pakistanis and just everyone impacted by the energy disaster, how many will be killed by the tens of billions of dollars just approved for Ukraine and the unceasing flood of increasingly advanced weapons being sent to that nation, which is the stage on which the NATO-Russia war is already being fought? But it is a good morning for those working for peace, such as the Pope's offer for the Vatican to serve as mediator and host to peace discussions, for the LaRouche movement, working to support that initiative and build discussion around Helga Tsep-LaRouche's 10 principles for a new security and development architecture. It's a good day for those directing history in a new course. You know, it's easy to be anti-war in general. I mean, most people are personally against war, I think. I don't think people generally want to invade others and kill. That's a minority. So why do wars occur then? Is it because of some organic rise in national sentiment to conquer another or to right some injustice somewhere? Or is it created? Is that willingness to go along manufactured by propaganda designed to pull you in? Go back 20 years. How many people believed that Saddam Hussein really did have weapons of mass destruction? And how many simply felt that they had to profess such a belief without worry of being called a Saddam Hussein supporter? How many people today have a clear sense of the decades-long background behind the current conflict occurring in Ukraine? How are purported atrocities used to goad people into supporting the supply of tens of billions of dollars of weaponry while believing that this is the road to peace? How is the popular discourse simplified and emotionalized in a way that prevents people from just talking honestly about these things? Negotiations now are the only way to prevent what is already becoming World War III from destroying all of human civilization through a nuclear exchange, whether that is intentional or, as has nearly happened already in the past, by accident. Meanwhile, Russia is not isolated internationally. We are. The international community is a lot more than the US, the UK, Germany, Ukraine, and Poland. China has no problems in its relationship with Russia. They say so. India refuses to join in the anti-Russia crusade. Those are two nations, each of over 1 billion people. Does that matter? Do their views matter? Nations of what is called the Global South, witnessing the obvious hypocrisy and pretending to care about sovereignty and territorial integrity in this case, expressed by the most blatant violators of such norms in the past, these people, they don't want to be pulled into taking sides in this conflict. Ukraine is burning through weaponry and soldiers at a rapid rate. The foreign minister, Kuleba, has just again announced in an interview with AP that they have effectively no interest in negotiations. Taiwan, the other flashpoint for global war against Russia and China. In their area, Tsai Ing-wen has just announced that mandatory military service for men will increase from its current 4 months to 1 year. But meanwhile, look, the economy is in a shambles. Hyperinflation is out of control, driven by a refusal to acknowledge that, in fact, the financial system is bankrupt, and also by the so-called green, really anti-human, Malthusian policies that reduce our productivity and which make us more susceptible to the climate. They make us more susceptible to danger by climate variations by preventing the development that makes us resilient in the face of them. Look, we are not some animal species that has to very carefully protect its environment so that it doesn't change in any way because we depend on it in a very specific way. We don't have a certain kind of fruit that's the only thing that we eat. We don't have bills that are, bird bills that are meant only for one kind of flower. That's not us. What we do is we transform our relationship to nature by growing, by developing, by improving our environment, by improving our communications, by using more energy, more reliable energy. This is why the effects of weather overall are much less severe now than they were 100 years ago, and that is the path towards the future. Now, so can we talk about these things? Can we talk about the fact that the green policies are a fraud? Can we talk about the fact that the Ukraine situation is essentially an oversimplified lie in its propagandistic treatment by the legacy media? Can we discuss this? Well, the Twitter files have shown us what's really going on behind the scenes, at least in this social media platform, with what have already been documented to be manifest, blatant violations of the First Amendment through government pressure on Twitter to make specific moderation or censorship decisions. The Ukrainian Center for Countering Disinformation, 1 week ago, republished its enemies list, on which Harley, Helga Tseplerush, and I, among many others, appear. And they're creating Telegram and Instagram posts denouncing Helga Tseplerush. The fear that an honest discussion would lead to a change in policy is what lies behind these censorship acts. And then just think, what we see in the Twitter files is interesting. What's hiding in the Kennedy files? 2 weeks ago, the Biden administration announced that it would not be releasing in full the documentation collected around the assassination of President Kennedy. And it means that although a 1992 law mandated that all of these documents would be released by 2017, 25 years after the passing of that law, the Trump administration twice declined to release all of the documents, and now the Biden administration has done so as well, keeping 5,000 documents, presumably some of the most interesting ones, away from public view. What is the potential to discuss and to think when such a crucial part of our past is being hidden from us? Is it any wonder that American trust in the government has declined essentially annually since that time? So let me end with some thought about what we could, what we should, in fact, what we are in some ways doing by saying something about the breakthrough a few weeks ago at the NIF, at the National Ignition Facility at Lawrence Livermore National Lab. The announcement was that break-even, in fact, a 50% improvement beyond break-even had been achieved. That compared to the amount of X-ray energy supplied to a tiny piece of fusion fuel, the energy created was 50% beyond the X-ray input to it. This is a research project actually mostly designed for creating nuclear weapons, since you can't test them. You have to sort of test small explosions and then use that to inform a computer model to design weapons. That's why this facility gets $500 million in annual funding. But this project was for learning more about fusion in a more scientific way, and specifically about introducing a new geometry that rather than only use 192 lasers coming together to force together fuel to create a reaction like that which occurs in the sun as a step towards using nuclear fusion as an energy source for us, the most recent experiment had also incorporated a powerful magnet, bringing together the two ideas of nuclear fusion of inertial confinement, as with the lasers, and the magnetic confinement that's more familiarly seen in a tokamak. The fact that they had such an improvement beyond past results really validates this this new approach of a new geometry to fusion research and fusion development. So if the world had a crash program on nuclear fusion, as some nations, as Putin has called for, as China is moving forward on, as mostly occurs through private industry, private investors in the U.S. instead of public funding, as these actors do, this is the real future for our species. This is what was promoted by the Fusion Energy Foundation, founded by Lyndon LaRouche, this was the idea half a century ago, because there is no breakthrough more important for liberating us from poverty and underdevelopment than the development of new, higher energy dense and energy flux intensive forms of power than nuclear fusion. This is the real key on this, to creating an order of magnitude greater economic output, to absolutely eliminating poverty, underdevelopment, and really ushering in an era of greater power over nature, over the environment, over resources, over water. Large scale desalination would become possible, as well as a greater power over our solar system. Being able to go to Mars in a few days instead of the months that it takes right now. Being able to take out a dangerous comet or asteroid heading on a collision course towards Earth, against which we're almost entirely prepared to do anything right now. That's the future, and that's what we really should be doing. And that's the sort of thing to keep in mind when thinking through why we must stop this war right now, why we must demand negotiations in order to create a really beautiful future that truly is within reach for us. So I end with that. I wish you a wonderful day. I hope I've given you some supplies to help have an effect on shaping that direction that history takes. Please make sure, if you haven't already, to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you will not miss any of our morning updates. You won't miss Harley. And if you haven't yet, you can sign up for Harley's email newsletter, usually once a week, by going to thelarouche.org/Harley. So thanks for joining, and see you next time.